Good afternoon. It's Professor George Lees. I've just about closed the circle between religion, central banking, money lending, warmongering. Almost everything is run by the same elites, and the most powerful of all in modern day times have come from this dynasty in the Rothschild family. I could not remember with John Patterson where they started off from as the 5 arrows, but those towns are, the 3 that we had sussed easily are Frankfurt, where the European Central Bank now is, Paris and London, and Frankfurt is where they emerged from the ghettos. Okay, the other 2 places are Vienna, that's the Österreich joke, Hitler's birthplace near Innsbruck, and the no room at the inn joke, near Innsbruck, the birthplace of Arnie Schwarzenegger, who's out there way out west, as the YMCA follow him right across the world. All of the political correctness, all of the homosexuality issues, all of the clerics in the religions that we talk about all of the time and their gender bias, all of it has been done to cover the crimes of the world's money lenders. Okay, the music is lovely and the music is made in 20th century Fox. Okay, it's really foxy and clever, but it is ever so destructive for the civilization concept that I'm hoping will be in place within a year. Right then, so the last 2 places we discovered beyond Vienna, we have the place that is fondest of all to the inner circle, with the possible exception of Rome, because that place is Naples. Okay, the 5th central bank was set up by Almond Rothschild. That's not my mate Kenneth Kalman, who may well be a family member. He's the elite boss, formerly at Durham University, now at Glasgow University, who let the Snowden in as a cover-up for the Rothschild world history. Okay, and I'm going to show you how the whole scam is shielded and protected by sporting tournaments that now occur almost every weekend. I believe next week we're back into the Rugby World Cup finals. And I'm going to show you one of the legendary combative finals featuring 2 of the countries that host those 5 arrows rather. The 5 flies are the fleets that fly away, that sail away from the capital cities in Europe. And I'm a little bit bemused by the Austrian central bank, because it's run. It's been replaced by the ECB in Frankfurt because it's the massive one and it's close to home. But it was run by the Habsburgs. Now the Habsburgs, in Vienna. Okay, and the boss there was Salomon Mayer Rothschild. Okay, in Naples, where Kalman Rothschild. I think that can be shortened to Carol. Okay, So the name Carol Rothschild is the one that's associated with Naples, and Naples is associated with all of the crimes that we've talked about in the religious frauds, and also the acts of God that occur there, because Vesuvius is looking down on the Piso family's house. Okay, I've got a whole series of new declarations to make, which is why I've been almost silent for 24 hours as I find out the shocking truth about what happens. And all of it involves someone who's been in power as the British Prime Minister for just over a year in the lead up to all of those events that we talked about in Khartoum and all of the lead up to World War I. Yeah, and the central bank in Austria was created in 1816, like the central bank in London, because that's the Napoleonic triumph, and that is why ABBA sing Waterloo. Yeah, and that is why ABBA win the first inaugural Eurovision Song Contest, because it's a joke about that lot. Okay, it's a joke about all of them owning the world over the course of time. Okay, and I've explained to you that the biblical characters come into the story again and again. But let me get you now into the Naples story and the British character who's built his elite villa there, and that's the first woman. Yeah, that is Hannah Rothschild. Let's have a look at her again. So, Hannah Rothschild and the Primrose woman. So she married the soon-to-be Prime Minister of England. What was his name again? She's Hannah Rothschild, and the reason I got excited about her marriage to the Gentiles in Scotland was that the Primrose man lives near the fault line where the earthquakes occurred in 79 AD as a message from the gods that something's up in the fraud centre. Okay, and that is way out west on the west coast of Scotland near Iona. That's as far west as you can go before St Patrick needs to be launched into the team, if he was ever in the team and is not just false news. So there is Plump Hannah Rothschild, who married that man there, and he looks a little bit like a poofta. He's got the arm perched on his hip. Yeah, this time it's not looking for the wallet, it's declaring that my sexuality is a little bit dodgy, and that's what we want you to understand about my role in life as the Rothschilds begin to manipulate me using the Scottish epicentres for fraud that we talk about all of the time. That's the speculative society in Edinburgh and the law society all over Scotland, who are money launderers all over the world. Okay, right then, so I've got loads of tabs open, and can you see the volcano in the background? That's because she marries him and they live in an elite villa in Naples, overlooking the bay and looking up at Vesuvius, which is controlled entirely by the god that they laugh at, which is why she died at age 39 with a horrible disease called Bright's disease. Yeah, and all of the people that die of Bright's disease are really famous, and they're kind of legendary for stealing from their country or for committing genocide in other people's countries. Okay, you really need to be God-fearing, and I am really God-fearing now, so I see what they can do. Right then, let's stop twittering on and let me show you the sites I've got open and what we might have time to cover. Yeah, because it's easier if I just simplify this story and give you it in plain English. Yeah, like the BBC do, but this time you're getting the truth. Okay, so there's Calman Rothschild, Central Bank of Naples. You've seen the Rothschild movie. What I intended to show you next was the music from the World Cup final. to let you hear how jiggy the Italian national anthem is. Yeah, and that's the Italian national anthem that gathers the admiration of a woman called Miss Jean Brodie, who's very much hated by a woman called Mrs. Mackay, which just happens to be the teacher's name in Kelso, Mrs. Mackay, and she's from the Lothian Coast, where a lot of the story emanates from. Yeah, that's the British fascism and the House of Shaws, the Balfour owned properties in that region, and that leads to the persecution of a woman with a son called Michael within the last 2 years, which is a massive diversion from the story J.K. Rowling, who looks really nervous about the acts of God because her family have MS, lives in those places now. That's the House of Shaws, that's Cramond. Yep, we'll take you into that, we'll show you the Google Maps of it, and I've already declared that the central bank in Naples was started by Calvin Rothschild there. Okay, Greg Hallett report number 6, this is about murder in the monarchy to cover up the false bloodlines. Yeah, and that involves King, I think it's Edward VII, he's the murderous one. Yet the eldest son of Queen Victoria, and he visited Naples, and he went there with poofdas who write in the elite inner circle, and I will name them in due course. Okay, the Villa Roseberry is right next door to the Villa Papyrri in Naples. Yeah, that's his villa. The Scottish poofda, the Prime Minister who was involved with all sorts of deviant, butcherous characters, yeah, including Disraeli, including people that I had never associated, who are now named Bannerman Burke. Yeah, but they are associated with as Campbell Bannerman, with being prime ministers and rivals in the warmongering sector. Okay, so Edward VII, Greg Hallett's version of what Edward VII does to the legitimate claimants for the throne. Yeah, and what we've got here is a series of tabs, and I can show you the PowerPoint images of what we've already shown you in yesterday's videos, and it will get closer and closer to the hub, because yesterday we were talking about elites in my local region that are the Roxburghs, and how they married into, through Plump Hannah, I'm not allowed to say fat or obese, yeah, because I'm a criminal offender now, and it's all over the border newspapers. The Southern Reporter that I defamed for the culling of returning troops and the condoning of Kev Drummond's efforts to keep the Five Arrows and the Brookhouse and Derringer things a secret from our country, because Miss Windrum at the Southern Reporter works for the Prince's Trust on the side, and they're totally disloyal to the ordinary people that buy their paper. Right then, so there is the Innes Kerr dynasty. That's Bobo, who looks dead like he looks dead like Spode, yeah, in the PG Woodhouse output. Yep, same moustache, same posture. He's the one that locked her, the McConnell, yeah, and Field McConnell is the boss at the efforts to save the world that is Abel Danger, yeah, that John Patterson admires. John Patterson with one T, like Paterculus in the Roman court. The bloodlines are all intact, and there is the lovely woman that married the 7th Duke of Roxburgh, who is Winston Churchill's auntie. Yet she launches the Mauritania. She refuses to take us into combat in Ireland, or allows Ireland to be taken easily into the combat that was World War I, and I believe all of that occurred in 1916. But now what you've got when you look up the Croke Park massacre is that it happened in the 1920s. So they're covering their butt by rewriting the false news within the same week or month that I reveal the truth about the way they have run the world by brutality and genocide. Yeah, and that's the Wynne Williams name. I have a theory that that will be behind the Barry Island jokes, but I have no basis for that at the moment. All of the people in the Barry Island movies are in the comedies about the Shipman cover-up. Yeah, the Shipman name is the surname of Gavin and Stacey when they get married. Okay, and Shipman, the murderous doctor, is just a cover for Shipman, the war correspondent for Iraq. I've told you all of that stuff before. So you now understand the smoking volcano and why Hannah Rothschild is a diversionary person. And what happened was that she got this horrible blood disease. Yeah, that it's caused, or it's a kidney disease, and it causes renal failure in the end, and it's a horrible death. And when the male gender get it, you get testicular, you get referred pain in your testicular region. You remember the stories about Hitler only having one ball, and or the Albert Hall joke. It's a joke about Prince Albert's sexuality, and there's the image that I showed you of the Queen being the child of Winston Churchill, like Bill Clinton is the child of Winston Churchill, because my mate Greg Hallett used to talk explicitly about how insipid the royal connections were to the people that were the candidates for the royal throne on the eve of World War II, and the imbecilic man that made the King's speech had an IQ of less than 70. Yeah, which is why the maid that married him came from the downstairs sector, and that's why she married him, and that's why they made the King's Speech movie, yeah, featuring a lookalike for Ian Fleming. The warmonger, and the bit that did not come up in the thumbnail for the video yesterday was not Bobo Roxburgh 9th Duke George Victor Inniscare, but the name Rothschild was too big to put in the thumbnail for yesterday's video. Okay, that's Roseberries, Rothschilds, Inniscare, Churchill, and the attic and butler gossip, because this was the first wife of the 9th Duke, Bobo, and she spent most of her life trying to have a life, because that's the launch of the locker in the attic Jane Eyre joke. Okay, and all of the links to the Crewe region and the woman that became the mother of the next Duke, very popular people, yeah, all of it is a massive cover-up, and it takes you into the Bamber Gascoigne stories, the Bambi films, and all of it is a tragedy, because democracy could have all of the funding, and it takes you way back even to the legitimate kings and queens when Scotland was united by James. The King James Bible was James the First in England, James the Sixth, and he's the 4-year-old son when he's crowned in Scotland, and that's why the English Bible is different from the Church of Scotland Bible, and all of it is for sectarian violence, which is escalated by King Henry when he fancies being God. And he's able to lop the wives' heads off as a moralist. Okay, let me show you the tabs on this, because sometimes just the summary in my own words is more telling than the complicated story for the simple people which they sing about in the Arthurian movie. Yeah, which was written by the popes in Rome. That's Camelot in Falkirk on the fault line. It's Camelon. Right then, here's the tabs I've got open now. So the Piso story we've told you about again and again and again, and we know all about the Piso authors working in both Rome, in the Roman court, in league with people and enemies of people like Nero, and I forget the second emperor that they had killed. I think his name was Domitian. Yeah, and that will be the domino jokes and the black and white dogs jokes. Okay, so here's the man from Scotland, yeah, from the fault line, from the Kinross region, from along that Dunblane track, yeah, and if you follow, he actually was the landowner in the Lothian Coast where the House of Shaws is, and he's got massive properties there. I've got the Google Maps all primed to let you follow that, and you follow the river that comes out of there. So the river that runs through it is called the Almond, yeah, and that is the Cramen joke and the Christianity joke all rolled up into one. And when Miss Jean Brodie, the fascist, invites her gay boyfriend, who's the man from the Great Escape movie, the kind of soft Scotsman that's in it, yeah, and her lover in the school teaching sector that is impotent, yeah, her real lover is the art teacher who's a Catholic, and all of it is ever so clever, because Queen Mary gets her head lopped off because she's a Catholic, and the Protestant church gets to be built in St Giles in the Royal Mile right next door to the Parliament building. For a laugh, Scotland has never had governance of itself, but they have massive jokes at the citizens' expense, and the citizens in Scotland get replaced by the sheep, and then they become the colonists, and then they become besotted with sport so that their lives are worthless, and the whole of the tyranny can consume the whole of the Commonwealth as a fraud subsidiary of the Crown Templar and the Crown Office that runs Law Enforcement UK. Okay, so here we've got the, let's read the tabs, and let me quickly open them so we can see the themes. You can look them up for yourself. Most of it comes from Wikipedia, some of it comes from Google Books, and they get ever so nervous when you begin to talk about what they do. So they're trying to make my connection to the internet fragile. Okay, so that's the Comrie, is the most quake prone region in Scotland. That's Perth, Kinross. Yeah, Perth is where Anne Gloag is. Yeah, and it's massive. Okay, and it takes you right across to Oban. Yeah, and all of the names that come up in the terror threat, the spying threats, are with the cocks and with the Breton camps, and all of them are with the people that get executed at the back of the boat that just happen to be Robert Maxwell, yet the head of Oxford University Press, and all of it is a cover for the massive sins of the world's owners. He's just a low-life Czechoslovakian. Right then, so Archie Primrose is the hub of the story, and I think I should tell you some of that before we start going. No, let's do other tabs. Okay, so the Villa Roseberry is in Naples. The Villa Pignati thing, let's see what that's called for real. The Villa Pignati thing is also in Naples, but that is the basis for the central bank, and it's lovely. Look at it. It's angelic. It's like somewhere that the gods would inhabit. It's in fucking Naples, with God looking down with his finger on the Vesuvius button. Okay, the Villa Pie Pig. It's got ham in it joke, because the religious affiliation does not matter at all, as long as the cash flow is flowing like one of the fall lines that they create. Yeah, there's a falls in the Balfour farm where I was born, yeah, called Newton Dawn, and that's the land of Nod if you twist it around. Okay, so the pie word is the Piso Author Declaration, which is why the central bank for the money lenders that are the Rothschilds is in Naples. Yeah, and there it is. And here's a joke for you. The central bank in Naples is called the CM de Rothschild A Figleaf. Yeah, the fig leaf in the Garden of Eden. Where's my apple gone? I chucked it away when I was thinking about the cricket context yesterday. Yeah, everything is massive spin factor. All of it is a crock of lies to keep the world owned by the world's elites, and they are murderous and genocidal. There's the Committee of 300, and here's a little bit more. So the FIGLI Bank is linked already by the stage that this is summarised. I think this is the work of that man that's associated with anti-Semitic crimes called Coleman. Okay, and here we've got the Committee of 300 roundtablers armed with immense, in other words, these are theories, are protective of central banking and the Rothschild banking house in Naples, Italy, CM de Rothschild and Figleaf. I'll have to look up the actual translation of that, but it's quite easy to see their trivial jokes. Okay, then we get people that come into the story. I mentioned the Bannerman Burke characters. They're a law firm here now. They would not take me on. They've got offices in Gala and Hawick. I left messages on their answer phone. They never replied. Okay, but we've got people called Lord Tweedmouth or Baron Tweedmouth, and Tweedmouth is Berwick. There he is. Nice looking guy, like Abraham in the Bible, and my mate Cliff Abraham in Otago University, who's not at all religious but is really short of funds because of what the Rothschilds do to every country that is a democracy around the world, and that's democracy in inverted commas. Okay, so Tweedmouth was the head of the Admiralty, yeah, and he's got Nazi mates, and when they take his job down in the Parliament building, he begins to reveal the secrets of our country to his Nazi mates. You should look it up. His real name is Marjorie Banks. Yeah, really poetic. And he may well be in the banking film that is Mary Poppins, with the umbrella about God's creating the weather patterns when the financial frauds begin to occur. Right then, the next tab is the Almond Valley. And I've been right along it. It starts at Cramond, yeah, where J.K. Rowling now lives. Yeah, it starts where the Robert Louis Balfour Stevenson left for Monterey and he's the one who launched the Treasure Islands joke. Yeah, he's the author that writes about globalism. Way back in the 19th century, he gets horrible diseases too, and he has to go to the lovely warm place that is Monterey on the west coast, but is really earthquake prone, as all of you know, because it's on the edge of that Pacific fault line. Yeah, and they get massive quakes. Okay, so sometimes when I learn these secrets, yeah, and I'm pretending that I'm learning it in French, yeah, like all of the linguistics, I've learned a lot about the classics departments in Oxford and Cambridge, and it is really sick. That's the Oxford one there, the Tripos Piso joke, yeah, the Tripos degree in ancient history at Oxford. You should see the alumni. I might take 3 videos to get through this story. It is really telling that the proper and the well-spoken people of our world need to be able to speak Latin and Greek even now to be really at the top of the inner circle. And the people that are the alumni at Oxford in the Tripos degree, all of them are legends in their own lifetime for stealing from the people and keeping them enthralled by bullshit output. It's the Melrose Book Club Festival this week. Ali Moffat, the rector at St Andrews, where the Queen's babies learned to steal, yeah, that was led in the past by Butcher Haig. He's there. Jim Nocty's there. Sally Magnuson, who sings the songs of praise and sells her book on urine, taking the piss, is there. And the woman that told me all of that used to work in Pumferston, which is well up the Almond Valley, getting close to the head of it, yeah, and there BP run a shale scam. That's shale oil and gas. They're now trying to run one near the lake at Dunfermline, and it is just selling coupons. Yeah, that is Lake Fitty, where my fishing club used to go. And I used to think that the biggest sin in that region was people in the competition who were fly fishing getting off to take the Piso in the bushes because they need to take a piss, which is what Sally writes about, and that they might be digging worms there. They're really innocent. Yeah, really innocent people. Right then, and so when Miss Jean Brodie wanted to entertain her gay boyfriend, she would take him to Cramond for the weekend. That's the joke. Yeah, right at the bottom of the Almond Valley, and guess what? They have a waterfall there, but just above it they have a dam, which is why they have a waterfall. Yeah, and it's really funny that you can screw up God's beautiful ecological creations, and then they've got at the bottom, they've got a boating outlet, yeah, for elite yachtsmen. That's why J.K. Rowling lives there, that's why the Balfours live there until the heat's put on them, and that is why little Ronnie Balfour Corbett keeps quiet about all of this, since he's got his knighthood the same week that the man from Gavin and Stacey, that is also a poofta, got his. I forget what his name is. The whole lot of the cover-ups involves all of the global media, and it is vastly expensive. None of the common people get anything that they should get as a right from their government. That is everything. We could have a blessedly peaceful and prosperous world if they stopped pretending that we can't afford to spend money which they create willy-nilly and give it only to themselves. That's Dave Prentice, and the woman from Pumperston was quite shocked when I told her about Dave Prentice and the union leaders, because she's a Glaswegian, and I told her also about the radical wars and the killing of returning troops, and she was quite affected by that, even although she's a book club adherent. Right then, so other tabs. So Pumperston's up the Almond Valley, yeah, and what we've got, and almonds is a yellow sugary fruit that you put it in the wedding cake and you celebrate all of those religious occasions. Yeah, I've just posted a video on a woman from Saudi who's got over 100 husbands, but is a money launderer in West Sussex. Yeah, and she's linked into the German companies that are money launderers out of Northumberland. Yeah, that's Hexham. They're called Egger, Thomas Egger, and they're involved in the killing of people that are alleged to be involved in the financial wars, and that takes in Tiny Rowlands. It's really dangerous to be an enemy of Tiny Rowlands or of Lord Beaverbrook. All of his colleagues in the sectors that he worked in before he became the world's propagandist were disappeared quite quickly when they got in his way, and he works in the Churchill Falls region. Here's the other Prime Minister that I'd never heard about, Campbell Bannerman. The Campbells are coming is a legendary threat in Scotland because they're associated with the massacre at Glencoe where Jimmy Savile lived. Jimmy Savile was also a fellow, yeah, of the place where Bram Stoker wrote about Dracula, and all of my stories have them in panic. And yesterday, the leading vampire and the man who played the baddie in The Lord of the Rings, they're all baddies because they're covering up criminals in world history. Yeah, he died this week. The man who pretends to be the vampire, and that's because I've discovered the links to Yugoslavia of the elites that run the central banks. Okay, then you've got the posh classics degrees at Oxford and Cambridge, and this is really telling because the people that do those degrees, some of them come from Göttingen. That's the next tab. Okay, and so this is the globalized fraud team jetting around the world at trade fairs, yeah, and all of the people that I meet that are still in work, all of them are just propagandists now. The product gets rarer and rarer. All of the Ponzi schemes thrive, which is why Cairn are represented on the court of the Bank of England with our leading union members. There are no products at Cairn. Everybody knows that now, but their boss is still on the court of the Bank of England, and nobody in the regulators will prosecute them because they get the trickle down when they issue it. And all of the people that get surveilled, in the headlines of the papers yesterday, they're looking at the surveillance issues, and whether or not the Home Secretary or the Prime Minister will be allowed to continue putting people like me on that list. If they don't, it might be easier, they now realise, to kill those people, because those people become really legendary for exposing the crimes of the government in their own home. And if they were not monitored in their own home, like everybody now is, if you're an innocent, you could murder them and put them in a wood where we're not allowed to dump our rubbish now, because all of the assets that our local councils used to possess have been asset stripped from us already, and all of them, the local governments, the national governments, are in a premeditated debt pool that the Rothschilds have created for the world by bankrupting every nation on our globe. Then there is Archie Primrose's wife, Plump Hannah, and she's the one that sires the people that get put into the power base all around the world. She had 2 male children and 2 female children, which makes me doubtful that Archie Primrose is actually a Pufta, unless the parents of those were other than him. That's the way it works. That's why a Pufta was chosen to be with Queen Victoria, and why all of her children, bar the first one, who was sired by the murdered blind Prince George of Cumbria, when he was 14 and she was 12 on the Isle of Man. Her marriage was legal, the rest of the children were illegitimate, and all of the marriage to Prince Albert, who wore the homosexual chain through his penis with a metal ring so that he could not copulate with anyone, they killed him too. Right then, and we've got further down, I've got Greg Hallett's output on that, and what that guy that visited Naples, when he was still Queen Victoria's next in line to be the heir, he had other brothers that were involved in the Jack the Ripper's murders, and they get covered up by Shakespeare, they get put in Glamis Castle, and the wife that was chosen for them screws off because she does not fancy being the sexual victim of someone who cuts the female parts out of the dead victims of his murderous crimes. That's a real serial killer in the British monarchy, Prince Eddie. So you can get close relationships with Germans, and Göttingen and Heidelberg have more chancellors, that's the boss in Germany, than any of the universities there. That's the ones that, like Cambridge, Oxford and the whole of Buckinghamshire, are immune from bombing in World War II. And the assessors in World War II are really dodgy because they remunerate the elites. And the insurancemen all over the world, as Greg Hallett has told us, are based on the intel practices, which is why they get to sniff around with a clipboard. Right then, so there's Plump Hannah, the first of the Rothschilds to leave the Rothschild dynasty and to become the wife of a Gentile. And at the top of that you can see that she's married to the 5th Earl of Roseberry, and he's Primrose Roseberry, Archie Primrose, 5th Earl of Roseberry. And there is the spectacular tiara of Hannah the Rothschild, and there's a beautiful looking woman that could be one of the Saudi princesses, because the irony here is, to get a new queen in Europe you have to murder or cut the head off the previous one, whereas in Saudi, where they're filthy rich because they've got the oil wealth there, that now Tony Blair takes a huge chunk of them, to let them be in peace, in inverted commas, they are able to marry 120 wives and to run a harem. But the Duke of Roxburgh's ex-wife, who's really decent and is really rich, is not allowed to visit her children in their home, and it's the same for me. I'm going to contest that until my last breath, as you know. Yeah, and what you see is the Aryan word is in everything with the Christian ficking cross on it. Right then, and you've got yellow journalists. This is the Coldplay sing the song Yellow, which is the ties in the, so this is the Rosebud story. Yeah, because what you need in Hollywood, when you've got crimes of this magnitude brewing in all of the world's big financial centres, and remember that America, when it launched its central banks, launches 13 of them. It doesn't have just one, it has 13 central banks. All of it is a massive crime. And they used to have 6,000 provincial banks, which is what Greg Hallett told us about the cowboy world. Yeah, all of the local regions issued their own money like coupons. Okay, so this is yellow journalism, and then it follows up, because sadly the people that run the world this way and the people that write the false news often get horrible fatal illnesses like the Bright's disease issue that Plump Hannah got, and her husband lost all of his spirit. And you can see that if he's just a bit part in British government and is only in power for a year, he secured all of his goals in life because he wanted to be married to an heiress, so he gets Plump Hannah, yeah, and he gets massive houses all around the world. They're featured, and I'll show you the photos if we've got time, yeah. And his other ambitions are to be the Prime Minister, got to be that for a year, in the lead up to the massacres all up the Nile Valley, which is the Piso joke, the Piso joke. Yeah, and all of that leads into all of the stories that we've told you about the Zulu wars and everything that they do in sub-Saharan Africa. And when you travel up the Almond Valley, there are memorials in the place names of all of the little towns to the people that explored that. Yeah, so you've got who was the man that so you've got Victoria, and you've got, who's the explorer that discovered the source of the Nile, and there was another American chap came and shook hands with him. Yeah, all of that is on that Almond Valley joke line. And it leads you to the nearest abattoir to Kelso now, which is Shotts in Lanarkshire, and that's where the shale oil and gas scams happen. And it is a scar on the landscape, like all of the places, and all of the places where we went to with my family in the profiteering in the Church of Scotland, yet where they marry into African people and dynasties like the Kemps that are massive dynasties for generations in Africa, yeah, and all of them are from the Republic of South Africa, yet where all of the weapons trading occurs and all of the fascism that is apartheid occurs. The ghettos got 10 times bigger when Mandela tried to fund his country but was funded by the IMF scam, which is the replacement for the Austrian central bank. Yeah, that's the IMF. Oh, sorry, the IMF is in Washington, but the European Central Bank is in Frankfurt now, where the ghetto was. Yeah, where the Rothschilds started from. Okay, so the yellow journalists is a joke about Rosebud. That's the joke about the Hearst dynasties, yeah, and their writings, and all of it is covered in Puck cartoons and in Punch cartoons, because they all understand that Nathan Mayer Rothschild sired most of Queen Victoria's children. Some of them were sired by a very close, his half brother, forget his name, yeah, but all of her children beyond that, which was blind Prince George of Cumbria's, sired on the Isle of Wight, which is the Peter Sellers being their movie jokes. All of it is up front until the people like me come along that are prepared to expose Princess Anne and her relatives in the killing of the people in the Twin Towers and the deployment of Mike Tyndall, the rugby player, as a cover for the Tyndall Air Base. Yeah, she's a ruthless woman. She's asset stripping the country, and Prince Charles is a little bit lazier. She's more efficient. She gets onto the boards. She actually does some work to defraud every sector of life. She's the patron of the Scottish Rugby Union, and when you see what Gavin Hastings did and what they do in the money laundering sector and in the cover-ups for all of these crimes in all of the sports. I was going to play you the Italian national anthem at the World Cup final when they had all the fights with the French contenders. So that's the Italians who get a central bank to be fraudsters playing against the French in the World Cup final in 2006. All of it is trivia to cover up these massive signs, okay? These massive sins, rather. Okay, and there's the Bright's disease. Let me show you some of the victims of that. Abbots, Alexander III, Tsar of Russia. Abu Bakr, Sultan of Johor. Washington Bartlett, Mayor of San Francisco and Governor of California. The Calvary Hill joke. H.H. Bennett, photographer regarded as the father of the Dells. The Wisconsin Dells are another fall line with massive waterfalls and massive rock creations like the Grand Canyon. Yeah, when the gods get angry, they are capable of big seismic results. Okay, which you understand now with the Canterbury jokes. That's the Christchurch earthquakes, yeah, and the Canterbury earthquakes when I came back home to Kent in 2006. Yeah, that's where the Archbishop, Little Welby, does his crimes. Okay, Theosophical societies, false religions. Madame Blavatsky gets the horrible illness. Yeah, James Gillespie Blaine, H.H. Bennett, photographer. Oh, we've done him. Oh, the sinister looking Oxford people are much funnier. But do you get it? If they are laughing at the puka joke and the bunny jokes, American vaudeville, silent film comedians, then they're likely to be taken down by God on stage or in the movie. Yeah, and that's why now all of them make cartoons. When you look for the Hunchback in Notre Dame now, you will not find an actor that is brave enough to do it, because they know that the gods know that there is a joke at their expense, and what they're doing is elevating Jesus Christ to a heroic status for one of the characters in the Piso fraud. Okay, Cartiers, yeah, the diamond people, the Swiss people. Chabot, ice hockey player, TV Cobb baseball player, James Creelman, yellow journalist, died of the disease in February 1915 on his way to cover profiteering World War I. The bank in Vienna was created 100 years exactly before World War I was started. Yeah, exactly at the time when the Napoleonic conflicts cost Britain its central bank too. Two different brothers of the Rothschild family involved in massive warmongering cities. Yeah, so do you understand the yellow for cowardice affiliation? Yeah, watch the Coldplay video. The rain is pissing down onto the lead singer, who knows all about this because he's got a first-class degree in ancient history, not from Oxbridge in his case, but from University College London, like all of the band members have. Okay, Marcus Daly, Montana Copper King, Right then, let's just get down. So this is the much more innocent sector. I've met these people, they're really nice. That is a woman called Lucinda Russell Horse Trainer, and there's nothing left of the Archie Primrose dynasty in the Kinross region except the racing stables, but you can see that it's got as ever such a slight Aryan bias, yeah, and all that I can pin on her is curly hair. But they were part of the charitable events at the last Kelso races of the season, and her assistant in the team, yeah, had her daughter competing in that charity event because she'd had a really nasty fall and had fractured her back. Both of them talked to me, yeah, and the little girl that was brave enough to get on the horse despite the spinal injury did not win the race, but she did really well. Yeah, and those activities are really innocent compared to what the Rothschilds do and the genocides that the religious fraud creates everywhere. Okay, so this is still in Kinross, where the massive loch is, where Queen Mary was held prisoner because she's the Catholic. Yeah, do you see it? They sectarianise everything, the Irish things, everything that I've told you about the Duchess of Roxburgh, who's the Queen's equerry. They have now taken those issues of Bloody Sunday and they pretend that they happen in the early 1920s. Yeah, look at the movie about the band that are singing. It's 1916 is mentioned in the lyrics, and it's your guns and your bombs. I forget what it is. I'll try and play it at the end if we've got time, but I doubt very much that we will. Let's get on to Archie Primrose. Okay, so do you understand that Plump Hannah is the grandmother of one of the Duke of Roxburgh's wives? Yeah, and she is also the story takes you all the time. We've been to Berwick already with the man at Tweedmouth, but the places near there, the massive mansion opposite Eyemouth was owned by Winston Churchill as well. Churchill's relatives are in the breeding chambers, and because Churchill was sired by one of the earlier fraudulent kings, he has got a tiny little bit of royal blood in him, which is why they need him to sire. Yeah, these are the royal marks that Greg Hallett kept going on about. So that's why Winston Churchill was chosen to be the Queen's dad. Yeah, and that's why the Queen's mum was a maid from the downstairs sector. Okay, so there's the innocent people that are left in Kinross, and Kinross is a lovely fishery, but they screwed that up too because they put rainbow trout in it and it got all intoxicated and they got horrible diseases. Nothing that the human race touches is allowed to be natural and decent and clean. Yeah, it's all toxic. There might be some tabs below there. Can you see how much time this is going to take? Oh yeah, so there's the results of the Kinross stable. They do really well. I forget what their colours are. The golf and racing, but the colours in the Scottish football teams and in the rugby teams that are run by these people, yeah, because they are federations. The SFA is a federation that is subsidiarised to this team, and when they have to do it, they change their colours on only 9 occasions, because all of them are Masons. That's Celtic and Rangers. All of them are slaves to this system. Yeah, and the Scottish football team in 2014 had to wear yellow and pink because they're victims. They're slaves to the system, and the results that they get are totally meaningless as long as they cover up the crimes of the world owners that keep all of them poor and give all of them a conscience, and eventually all of them get acts of God happening to them. I believe that Alex Ferguson might have the capacity for greatness too. He's a fine speaker, he's a fine leader of men, and when he got convicted of speeding on the M6 by the corrupted Piso Police, yeah, he had diarrhea, and that's the only act of God he's been subjected to my knowledge. Okay, right then. So Comrie is the epicentre, and golf racing, what is that one? Oh, that's about the interlocks between the betting sector and the Betfair networks and all of the fraud. You know, if you can keep the people in the pub, or you can keep them in the wager, or doing the bingo and doing the meaningless stuff, it is not then a threat to you. Yeah, and their children in the militias will not get sage advice from their parents, because they're quite happy to play dominoes at the British Legion, run by, yeah, the Duke of Westminster, with that massive litigation fund in case I come to call. I'm now at his doorstep. They have nowhere to go. But I'm hoping to talk to his sister. Yeah, who's the Duke of Roxburgh's first wife, and is the victim of all of the issues that we're talking about here. Yeah, all of them. Yeah, and I just made a video on her, which is only about 4 minutes long. Watch it and read the text that accompanies it. It's tragic how the innocent families of our world are torn apart by greed, and in this case it's only greed, and it's the breeding chambers that choose the wives for every one of the elite partners across our globe. And I'm not an elite partner, I'm just an ordinary man, but I'm a victim of the same scam. Yeah, and I've got the director numbers for all of the manpower board that did that to me, just at the time when my company was packing up. The whole world is a scam in financial services terms, but when it's accompanied by genocide, it's really, really serious. So there's the Comrie fault line. That is the Antonine Wall region, yeah, and that is the Antonine fraud that is Rome and Agricola that we've told you about, covered up by Tacitus in the false news sector. And we've got a tab there on the Balfours. I'm not sure what that one is. Balfour was born in, so this is the original Balfour that was in the big castle by Loch Leven. Because when I discovered that Loch Leven and Kinross was part of the big shaky, quaky place, I thought, which of the evil families are there? And the first one I found was the Reverend P. Balfour, Minister of Clackmannan, and his wife Jane Ramsay Blair. Okay, there's a Blair, there's a Balfour. And one of them is in the religious sector, and that is the basis for the naming of the farm where Arthur worked. And religion is the basis for the partitioning of Palestine, and all of the plants on Facebook make a fuss about that, but they do not give a fuck about the central banking crimes that all of these people have done to every country in our world, with the possible exception of Gaddafi's relatives, who still are active in trying to prove his innocence, because he tried to keep his central bank in his hands rather than to desert his country like every one of those people. Right then, and you've got the Rome Agricola, and what we've got there with the words Ja in it, 79 AD and Ja, I'm not sure what that is. Oh yeah, so this is the Piso writings again, and the Judean mashes and the religious massacres and all of the people in the Roman courts that are responsible for that. So let's take you to Archie, the Rosebud character. Yeah, and do you get that? The Randolph Hearst jokes and all of the jokes about the war munitions magnates, North by Northwest, I forget what his name was, Howard Hughes, all of that is an interlock joke, because it's all about wartime profiteering to cover up the real profiteers that are the Rothschilds. They run every one of the financial institutions on the globe now, but because they're weak and elderly and their children are frail, and some of them are already victims of my exposures, yeah, they are in a really dangerous place now. Yeah, but thank you to the politicians for keeping things peaceful thus far. Last year was 2014. It is a very huge anniversary for the warmongering team, and we got them through that, and we're still at peace, and they now have a conscience, and they now understand all of the acts of God that are occurring. The Naples one with Vesuvius, 79 AD, and again in 1946 when they culled the returning troops, which is really funny for John Cleese and the Python team, because he makes speeches at Monte Cassino about such issues. That's the elite universities that need to be able to speak Greek and Nazi German. Göttingen, Heidelberg, all of them were immune from bombing in World War II. Right then, Archie Primrose. We're 60 minutes in. So this is the 5th Earl of Roseberry. This is Plump Hannah's hubby, a youthful PM and surrounded by murderous thieves, including Disraeli, the man Buchan that wrote the 39 Steps and became the Governor-General of Canada. That's Lord Tweedmouth, and it is a key period in world history. He fulfilled all his ambitions, marry the heiress, win the Derby and become PM. His racing stable survives in Kinross, and he lived in what is now the PM's house in Italy, in Naples. His house in Naples becomes the Italian President's house for the rest of world history. Isn't that interesting? His friends are the Campbell Bannermans from Kelvinside. That's the city of culture joke. And World War I is a certainty with this lot at the trough. All of them in the Parliament buildings are all encouraging the warmongering so that they can bankrupt their own nations, and they can bankrupt Germany particularly quickly because it's the host to the conflict. Greg Hallett's explained all of that stuff. If you are the host country, and you lose, it's really, really expensive because you get brutalized, and then everything that you have in your coffers from previous conflicts is taken out of there by the Rothschilds, and now by all of their corrupted auditors, all of the corrupted merchant banks. And when the central banks go to work, there is no need now to have the central bank in Austria because it's been replaced by the ECB, and it says that on its Facebook profile, which I just read. And what we've got also in what I just read is that the tour and taxi company is also established in Naples. That's how the Rothschilds get their news, and that becomes the yellow taxi empire. Takes you into New York, takes you into the 13 American central banks, and if you can get the news from your customer in the back of the taxi, or from your little, I forget what the name of the chariot was that was crashed by the Dionysius characters. It's the type, a Python. That's the basis for the Monty Python jokes, is the Python carriage. So that the person who's driving it can listen in to the secrets of the people inside. And it's a joke about the sun going from east to west, and the young man that was Python, that was charged with dragging the chariot with the sun in it from east to west, he crashes it, and that becomes the Holy Lands and all of the frazzled countries, and it becomes the central part of Australia, before the continents drift apart. And in the aerial view of that, you can see the messages from the gods written all over it, particularly under the heel of Italy. Where Miss Jean Brodie was a great admirer of all of their politicians. Okay, so right then, let's get down Archie Primrose's story. There he is, hand on the hip. So his sexuality is a little bit suspect right from the very beginning. Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, in office 1894 to 1895, all of them do little periods in office so they can shed the blame. Yeah, and it is very noticeable that many of them around that time are Scotsmen. He helped Gladstone to get elected, okay? And each of them scratch each other's backs, succeeded by the Marquis of Salisbury. The monarch at that time was Victoria, yeah? Very, very fragile monarch, because all of her, she's in a bigamous marriage, remember? Succeeded by the Harcourts. That's the name that came into the Wynne Williams, the new Duchess of Roxburgh's maiden name, yeah? And Harcourts are a major real estate firm in New Zealand. They helped us to sell our house when we escaped in 2009, and when we hit the tarmac, yeah, in the London air base, yeah, it started those severe winters. Yeah, as soon as we touched down, the taxi struggled to get us to Hemel Hempstead, and we bought our car, yeah, from the corrupted Volvo garage right next door to my mother-in-law. And it's amazing. And the whole of my wife was loyal to me because I was a quiet person then, and I was focused only on science. As soon as I begin to demonise all of the political structures that her and her family admire so much, I'm taken down and persecuted for nothing. Yeah, they have no grounds for divorce, and I don't know how they've got the courage to stand up in front of me and to swear on a Christian Bible. It's a really dangerous thing to do. Yeah, I'm quite happy to take them into further conflict on the moralist issues. Okay, the Duke of Devonshire has massive links to the Duke of Roxburgh, and that is, I believe, the Duke of Devonshire is the one that owns the real Downton Abbey venue, and it was the woman that was the dead ringer for Marianne Faithfull that told me that at the 3-day event. She was lovely, because she's a dead ringer for Marianne Faithfull, and she's kept her figure really well, if it really is her. Much more likely to be her daughter. Okay, because you must realise now that Mick Jagger is a joke about the Jaguar in India, and that is the Lord Liverpool McCartney jokes. Yeah, that's the launch of the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, and all of it is a cover as trivia for the brutalisation of Vietnam and the resurrection of Jesus after the stone had been rolled away, and now that is the marketing period that we now call Easter. Yeah, okay, Prime Minister William Ewart Gladstone. So this is Archie again. Nothing highlighted. Oh, the Plunkets. That's the Plunket Greens that eventually, who live on another river runs through the region, they become the triumvirate. That's the Plunket Greens that live near Lord Mountbatten in the south, near the chalk streams, and all of their literature is lovely. They're fishermen. It's all a cover for the narcotics laundering sector, and they are the three of them, Plunkett, Carnarvon, I forget, they, if you listen to Greg Hallett, they sire all of the current Queen Elizabeth II's babies beyond Anne and Charles. Yet they are really Prince Philip, Phil the Greek's children. Yeah, but her bloodline is so insecure before she takes office that there is virtually no loyalty left in them. That's why the the inbreeding index is so dangerously low for them, and that's why they have to bring in Commoner Kate, and they have to change the laws of succession before 2012. Yeah, because Greg Hallett was telling his story all over the world, and all of that has stopped dead since Greg Hallett stopped contacting me on Skype, and the people that now sell the PDF are likely to be the financial criminals from the Stepping Stones region in Zahawi's Stratford-on-Avon, Shakespeare's constituency. Right then, So, born Mayfair, Middlesex, England, the richest place on the Monopoly board. Died, and when he died, he's the richest politician that ever lived in Britain. That's why Tony Blair's in the papers again this week. And that's why Lord Sainsbury used to be my enemy, which is why my inaugural lecture in Dunedin was never published and never iPodded, because he was at that time the science minister in Britain and he sparked the obesity epidemic. And since then I have been a marked man for my outspoken nature and my capacity to reveal the world's criminals. Okay, resting place Dalmeny in Edinburgh, liberal. Spouse, died of renal stones, Bright's disease, age 39, Hannah de Rothschild, Plump Hannah, 1878 to 1890. 4 children, 2 male, 2 female. Intimately involved with marriages in the Berwick region, where Churchill had his castle at Ayton and was taken over by the RBS, that's the Royal Bank of Scotland, yeah, who have their logo on Princess Anne's Scottish rugby team's jerseys. And we are only able to fund 2 professional teams, the Scottish national team, the Edinburgh and the Glasgow team, and all of it is a massive flop, and all of it is a cover for the world's crimes against democracy and freedom. Yeah, and all of them rely on Zionist films from Hollywood to portray Braveheart, yeah, who's actually played by the Australasian actor who is Jewish. And that's why he was on rehab for a time, like the man who plays Butcher Haig. Yeah, all of them get what's coming to them in the end, and it's coming to them like a tidal wave now, particularly for the yellow journalists. Okay, so he's got a courtesy title when his father died before him. Yeah, it's a fragile bloodline. Okay, successful Midlothian campaign. So he helped Gladstone to power, and this is in 1889. Yeah, 1 year after the massive battles that we talked about in Khartoum. Yeah, that's 6,000 miles away from London. I don't know how many thousand miles away it is from Perthshire or wherever they were living at this time. Midlothian, that is the Cramen joke. Yet they're on the Lothian Coast, which is why Archbishop O'Brien has been put in the news again and again. All of the paedophilia crimes cover the world's genocides. Okay? She's a brilliant orator and an outstanding sportsman. Yeah, like Pippa Middleton. That's an outstanding marksman, like Pippa Middleton, who shoots with the Duke of Northumberland on the local estates. Yeah, and with my friends who earn £32 a day. And she looks charming, like her sister, and they're just ordinary people. And all of that is really constructive. And neither of them have been murdered by their family yet. They need to be careful about everything they do. Yeah, because Lord Condon and all of the Met Police share the name Polis. Like the Pisos, it's all a massive interlocking fraud. Winston Churchill, observing that he never adapted to democratic electoral competition, quipped, "He would not stoop, he did not conquer." Okay, so he's been brought down in the harsh world that Winston Churchill, the alcoholic, thrives in, and he's able to sire the Queen and Bill Clinton by artificial insemination because he's got about 1/5 of a monarch in him, in his bastard bloodline. I forget who his dad was. I think it was look up Hallett, Winston Churchill and his parentage, and you'll find it. Roseberry was a liberal imperialist who favoured strong national defence and imperialism that's brutalising everywhere else abroad, and social reform at home, while being solidly anti-socialist. Yeah, that means that he likes to put down the working man. Historians judge him a failure as foreign minister and as prime minister. I cannot see my tabs, but for that reason I'm going to get rid of that lot. Born on 7th May 1847 in his parents' house in Mayfair, London. The Charles name is important because all of the things about the Roundheads and revolutionaries and all of the sectarian violence, can you see how it's all pre-planned in advance? Okay, Lord Dalmeny was MP for Stirling and served as First Lord of the Admiralty under Lord Melbourne. Roseberry's mother was Lady Catherine Lucy Wilhelmina Stanhope. The relationship between mother and son was very poor. His elder and favourite sister, Lady Leconfield, was the wife of Henry Wyndham. I think he's one of the usual suspects. Okay, can I remember what he wrote? Dalmeny attended prep schools in Hertfordshire, yeah, where my wife and Lord Boateng and all of those people go. Yeah, that could be one of the Jewish schools, by the way, and Brighton, and went on to Eton, where most of our prime ministers come from. Then they go to Oxbridge, and many of them do classics because it allows you to have a laugh at the world ownership, since we had ownership of the world from a tiny group of people. Dalmeny proceeded to Christ Church, Oxford. Can you see how dangerously they tread their political careers? And that's why they die young and dispirited. Through the years 1865 until 1869, remarkably, the three prime ministers, yet remarkably not in inverted commas, from 1880 to 1902, namely Gladstone, Salisbury and Roseberry, all attended both Eton and Christ Church. Right then, whilst at Christ Church, he bought a horse named Ladas. Yeah? And I cannot see the joke of that. If you spell it backwards, like you have to do with the Hebrew and some of the Yiddish, yeah, it says saddle. Although a rule banning undergraduates from owning horses, yet this is the horsey Piso affiliation hippos joke again, and it's the GG joke in the Governor General sector, which is the Tweedmouth and the Buchan that wrote the 39 Steps joke. Okay? When he was found out, he was offered a choice to sell the horse or to give up his studies. He chose the latter, and subsequently was a prominent figure in British horse racing for 40 years. And the team from that region were charming and really beautiful to look at, and they were really dedicated to the person with the spinal injury. Yeah. I don't believe that the injuries are as accidental that they might have appeared 2 or 3 years ago, before my pathology theory was published and before they began to cover up the funerals of leading members of the Conservative Party, the BBC leaders. That's Lord Patton, the man in Australia, I forget what his name was, with the nudist beach, chief fundraiser for the Tories for decades, McAlpine, yeah, all of the paedophilia stories. Lord Patton had no paedophilia associated with him. Massive crimes against other people in the BBC, prepared to cover it up by giving bungs to their new replacements. Roseberry toured the United States, now this is the globalism bit, in 1873, 1874 and 1876. He was pressed to marry Marie Fox. Yeah, the Fox News empire is the Murdoch News Corp empire, and it's all ancient. The 16-year-old adopted daughter of Henry Fox, 4th Baron Holland. And you should see the size of the house that he borrows from him in London. She declined him and later married Prince Louis of Liechtenstein. Okay, so let's keep going down. First Baron Roseberry in the peerage of the United Kingdom. Okay? Roseberry is reputed to have said that he had 3 aims in life. Yeah, we've done this bit. To win the Derby, to marry an heiress, and to become Prime Minister. He managed all 3. Benjamin Disraeli. Yeah? You've seen the